Okay, welcome back to the Caribou Media Outdoors podcast. With me this afternoon is Aron Snyder from Born Primitive Outdoor. Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. I appreciate you. Can you?
Finally.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're probably the busiest guy going, so I appreciate the time, especially on the weekend too. So
I'm not gonna lie. The last time I skipped out on you, the fishing was so good. If I was supposed to have a podcast with Trump, I would have missed that one.
No, that's completely understandable. Yeah, you've been jumping back. You get into fly fishing recently. Was that you've always done that, or is that just more you've been able to give more time to it now?
No, I mean I've always fly fish. I mean I've always fished really heavily whenever I could, high country, alpine lake fishing. But with what I'm doing now, this is the first time I've really done what I'm doing now, and I'm pretty enamored with it. Like I'm kind of psychotic with shit. So like this morning, I spent 2 hours practicing tying on a different type of drop rig system to get proficient with it. And I was the same with traditional archery compound. Once I consume something, I mean, I consume it until I, try to be a master at it, whether that takes however long. And that would be fly fishing. My brain has to constantly be stimulated. Like I have to be doing shit. So
yeah. And I guess like tying your own flies would be like fletching your own arrows kind of thing. Similarities everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate fletching my own arrows. I don't know if I'm like tying my own flies. I'm not gonna. That may not be something I master. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, for sure. So just I mean, I highly expect everybody who's listening to this are going to know who you are. But can you just let everybody give everybody a blurb about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So Aron Snyder. I've been in the outdoor industry, I guess, for I don't know, 15, 20 years. I do everything from photography to some military training, podcasts. I'm probably known more for two things: backpack hunting and gear testing, reviewing, and designing. I worked for Kifaru International, the backpack company, for about 14 years, and recently came on full time with Born Primitive Outdoor clothing company. I started working with them about 2.5 years ago, and then went on full time with them maybe 4 months ago. 3 or 4 months ago, I guess. But I've written for multiple magazines. I started Rock Slide with Ryan Avery. I know I've done all kinds of stuff. I guess I've got my hands on all kinds of different crap, but just truly love the outdoors. And I got into this far before Instagram or anything else. You know what I mean? When you did it just to do it, and there was no real easy button. And I think that I've been able to see a lot of things change. My perspective's probably a little bit unique on certain things, but I started hunting far before there were cell phones. So yeah, it was different back.
Yeah, before the internet was the internet, like doing reviews on forums and things like that before YouTube and all that other stuff. So yeah. So do you remember, some people, I usually like to ask people, go back in time a little bit. Do you remember the first time you picked up a bow, and how did that kind of transition into bow hunting for you?
Yeah, so it was probably 1988. I'd mowed lawns, 89, maybe 88, probably. I'd mowed lawns all year and saved up enough money, and bows were way different back then. I don't know what I was buying. I was only a kid, like 11 or 12, maybe. And we went, I think it was the Bow Rack now, which a lot of people know the Bow Rack, right? But I think that's where we went. I'm from a very small town, a couple hundred people in Oregon, and it's an hour from anything really. And we drove down, and I think that's where we went, was the Bow Rack. I'm not sure. I was just a kid. And then, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, right? I mean, and aluminum arrows, and anyway, you're shooting into the dirt and breaking crap. And that was when I first, got into bow hunting. But probably the first time I was exposed to it was I went through hunter safety, the earliest you possibly could, which I think was 11 or 12. And that would have been about the same time, I guess, I got that bow. A guy named Arden Corey, I ended up playing sports with his son, came in, and he was a bow hunter. He brought a bow in, and I was enamored never really knew anything about bow hunting, was enamored with it the moment I saw the bow and him talk about it. And Arden was an amazing hunter, and I don't keep in contact with him. I mean, that was 30 some years ago, but it definitely was something that was the moment where I saw that bow and these giant 5-inch long Marco veins, and probably had 4 cams on it. It was a Hoyt. That's when that was the moment where I was a bow hunter.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of started when I was 7, got introduced to archery on a family trip, and we were at like a very outdoorsy kind of resort, and then got into it with school. They had an archery team. They brought in like this outdoor, like outside of the school, that they brought in a coach that was obsessed with us kissing the string. Like we had to kiss the string, and it was like you missed the target or you didn't hit a 10, you were doing push-ups, right? Like it was fun. We went to a couple tournaments, and then I kind of got away from it, and then after college, a friend of mine who I was on the archery team with calls me up, and he's like, I just left Bass Pro and I bought this compound bow. You got to go check it out. These things are crazy. They're nothing like we shot before, and literally like knew nothing about it. First time I ever looked at one, I thought there was like 3 strings on it because 2 of them were a backup for the first one in case it broke. Like I had no idea, right? No idea.
Yeah.
And then just kind of dove in deep and consumed everything I could about it. And that's when I found you, and you were podcasting back in 2015 with Gritty, and then it just kind of accelerated from there. And all the experience that you give people, it's just such a help. And my first arrow setup, I think, was an Easton Axis, and going over components and things that you had mentioned as a good starting point. And just it's been
funny that Axis is you want to talk about something that stood the test of time. Like I'm trying to think, because I shot ACC like 371 ACCs for hunting, 349s back in 99, 2000, 2001 too. I can't remember what year that hit component system came out, that Axis, but back then, right, it was a long time ago. It's still the same arrow today. I mean, it's what I mean. And I think people get pretty. I just went and looked. I think Easton's going to send me a bunch of the 5mm and parallel pros. But gun to your head, people get pretty like wrapped up, like what's the best arrow, and there's a lot of good arrows. It's pretty hard to buy a bad arrow out there, but that Axis it's been around longer than any other arrow. I mean, that's still on the market right now.
Yeah, I was talking to Cody from Easton, and he was saying I think 20 years it's been around. It started
a little bit longer than that.
A little bit longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah, Cody's young. He probably couldn't even jerk off when that arrow came out.
Yeah. And now the 5.0s are out, and they're even lighter, and probably the arrow a lot of people have been looking for.
I'm gonna see. I don't know. Cody, he's a good kid. I like Cody.
Yeah.
He needs to trim that mustache down. It freaks me out a little bit. He reminds me of like Kentucky Fried Chicken. What was his name? Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders, yeah. I think he said he grew it for like raise money for something, or somebody was having a kid that he knew, and it was like somebody dared him to do it or something. I can't remember, but he's trimmed it. And then when I saw him a couple of weeks ago, it's right back to where it was. Like,
yeah, 2004, 20 years.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the FMJ Maxes are so much lighter now. People who are obsessed with those are going to be getting an increase to feet per second.
I killed this bull with an FMJ, and that was the last time I shot FMJs. I am not a fan of FMJs. People know that. And I mean, that great arrow, like for no other reason. I just didn't see the benefit to shooting a more expensive, heavy arrow that could bend.
Right.
And back then, like I've shot maybe 4 bulls in that, big size. I'm not a great trophy hunter. That one, I was shooting a lighter arrow under spine, which was my fault. And in a fixed blade broadhead, I didn't get the penetration. It doesn't matter, but Easton makes some amazing. I shoot all kinds of different arrows. Easton makes a very good arrow. They pioneered a lot of stuff. So
Have you done a lot with the Parallel Pros? Like, do you think it makes a difference having the carbon on the outside as opposed to the inside, like with compared to the FMJs?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I shot not the Parallel Pro, but basically the Pro Comp, the
Okay.
same thing. So they're a little bit harder to damage with the aluminum on the inside compared to the outside. So, and the other thing is the weight too. Like, it's not just the one trick pony. I mean, it's not just bending them; they're also heavy as sin. And if you want to shoot a heavy arrow, by all means, don't listen to me. But I don't want to shoot that heavy of an arrow. So
yeah, I just picked up some 5.0s and I've got them to about. I got the 250 spine, so they're 9.5 grains per inch. They're sitting about 490, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so, it's a good weight.
30-inch draw, and this bow is 75 pounds, but I think I'll be bumping up to 80 this year, so it'll be screaming. So that'll be good. Cool. Are you you're shooting the Hoyts now? Are you going back and forth between the carbon and the aluminum, or are you sticking to the ultra?
I don't know. Yeah. Man, I think people get a little bit confused because I jump around, but I jump around because I just like to test stuff. And if you're gonna give realistic responses to gear, you kind of need to use the shit. So I don't shoot a carbon bow for any other reason than if that specific bow, if it happens to be carbon, I shoot it better. I'll shoot that one, but it has nothing to do with its lightweight because I stack so much shit on the bow. By the time I'm done, it negates the fact that it's carbon. And so, right now, I got both last year's model, the AX, what was it, 33 or whatever the hell it was, and then RX8, and then I have the RX9, and then the aluminum one. And I have them all set up. I set them up for people to try out and everything too. I'm trying to think, what the hell was the one last year called?
Oh, Alpha X?
Yeah, Alpha X. Good Lord. And this year's the
AX30. AX2, yeah.
Yeah, 2. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's just accuracy, right? What I'm more accurate with, draw cycle and everything else. So I don't really I don't worry about hand shock. I want a report in my hand when I shoot. I really don't care too much about speed. Again, that's because of my draw length, and I don't have a long draw length, 28.5, 29, but I can draw more poundage. So I'm not super concerned. I've never been a speed demon, way back in the day, but I've never been worried about speed. So for me, hitting what you're aiming at is always the most important thing. So I focus real heavy on accuracy more than, if my bow shot 265, which my elite, I shot a verdict, was 265 feet per second, and big long bow. And I don't know how much shit I kill with that thing, but it was a lot. And, slow bow, 265, most people would turn their nose at that, and 38 inches long. And I love that bow it's a great bow for hunting. I didn't have any issue with it, but most people probably, I'm old school, probably wouldn't pick that bow to hunt with.
Yeah, the Exalt they came out with this year is 35, and then I think their 30-inch one, the Artis, I think it gets about, I think the string angle is more like a 32 or 33 because the cams are so big.
Yep.
But yeah. Are you testing any broadheads this year? I know you were doing a lot with the Evolutions last year. Are you still doing that, or?
Yeah, I always test stuff. I shot the hybrid Sevrs, the Beasts, and the Evolutions obviously quite a bit this fall when I stopped guiding and everything else. So, but my kind of broadhead of choice is that Evolution hide. That's probably that's my most favorite broadhead for a mechanical. And I do all kinds of screwing around with different heads. I don't know how many broadheads I have in my garage, but it's, well into the triple digits of different, types to test. And I test things maybe a little bit differently than, most. And so if you don't see me ever mention or talk about a broadhead, it probably had some shit go wrong in the old garage. And so, you know, like when somebody says, "Hey, what do you think about this head?" And I'm like, I don't really have any experience with it. I probably sometimes should just say, "Hey, that thing was a piece of shit." But I don't want to bash a company. I could have had maybe, like when they do the heat treating, maybe they had a bad batch of that or whatever. So I do try to dig a little bit deeper. But I am surprised how many broadheads break on the impact of things they probably shouldn't break on. So.
Yeah, I remember. I think you were saying something about shooting the mega meat into a doe, and you could hear the blood sloshing around inside of it as it was running away.
Yeah, that was actually more stomach than blood, but yeah,
Oh,
it was.
okay.
Rotier actually could hear it. It was really well when it's coming up from the bottom, and a mega meat is a good example. Like that's probably one of the most accurate and probably the most devastating broadhead, and a horrible piece of shit when it comes to durability. Blades break off constantly. I mean, when I say that, I'd hunt with it. I've hunted with it, right?
Yeah.
And T-Bone, I love T-Bone. He's awesome, and that broadhead is very accurate. It is not a mountain hunting broadhead for one. Blades catch pops open real easy, and it's just not conducive to. You go through tag alder and shit, and all mechanicals have that potential, right? But if you want a big hole, that broadhead's going to give you the insane hole. Hits shoulder, probably not going to have too many blades on it when it's going through, they may have improved them since last time I tested, but we're not shooting by 50-gallon barrels and bricks and shit. So I get that. So I think a piece of plywood is a fair assessment of the thin part of a scapula. Depending upon if you're shooting, different types of plywood, but yeah, I mean, you might lose an eye with some of these broad. I mean, shit flies everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever played around with shooting mechanicals with your stick bow? Because I know that there's been some.
No. I mean,
okay.
I do know people that have killed a ton of stuff with mechanicals. I thought about it for a while, but it just didn't. It wasn't something I would ever promote, even if it worked, because I just know what it takes to open a mechanical. So just sheer physics, math, and common sense. Unless it was a turkey, that's a little bit different story. But you can have an arrow bounce off turkey pretty easy. That's squish. So I wouldn't do it or suggest it, but I do know people that have. Not only that, I couldn't barely handle the controversy in the traditional archery world. Adding fuel to the fire. So
the hate that would be thrown would be ridiculous.
yeah. So
yeah, I know. I was talking to Casey from Sevr, and he had mentioned that they'd been getting a lot of feedback from lower pounded shooters who were getting almost pass-throughs or pass-throughs. So they're going to be testing that to see if with if something like a 1.5, not necessarily the hybrid with the bleeders, but if a 1.5 can work in the stick bow community. I was like,
I would say like, you could definitely. I mean, if I had tested broadheads on animals with a stick bow, it would have been like white-tailed does, and it'll work, right? It's just not. I just don't know why. If you can't tune a 180 foot per second bow, I mean, again, like it's got to be a rhyme and a reason. Is it because of a bigger blood trail? Makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, but a lot of the positive things about shooting a stick bow when you go to tune is the ability to tune it, and generally a little bit more steering in the back and whatever else, less speed. You also have the human issues, we flinging, plucking the string and stuff. So I just don't think the juice would be worth the squeeze. But I mean, who am I to say, right? I mean, whatever. I wouldn't do it at all. I mean, I wouldn't buck with it, but
yeah, it just feels like with some of the way bows are going now, it's almost like they're reaching their peak of performance, and then all of a sudden Prime comes out with something like the Form, where they combine the two carbon and aluminum together. Have you played around with that at all?
No, I saw it, right? It looks different for sure. I mean, I mean, there's sayings about certain things about, that to me looks like it could have potential problems looking at it. But that doesn't mean anything, right? That's just looking at it face value, like, could it have problems? But they don't. Prime is very, very good at engineering. Like they're very advanced. And you also have to look, why would a company come out with something that would be a problem? Because they like to stay in business and they like money. And your flagship bow is not going to be a bow with problems. And so by default, whatever I saw at face value semi gets thrown out of the window, because I'm not an engineer, and my livelihood isn't depending upon that bow coming out like theirs is. And so they've had to have put a ton of testing into that thing, I would think.
Yeah. I thought it was, I think one of the videos I watched, they pushed like 1,400 pounds onto the riser to see if it would break, and it just slipped off the machine. Like, just crazy. So you were doing some guiding up in British Columbia. Where was it? Whereabouts were you for that?
North River Outfitting. It's central northern British Columbia. Yeah, last couple of years I've done that. I've worked off and on in Canada and NWT a little bit, and helped out or whatever else. But the last couple of years this was a lot more serious. Last year I was up there for 8 weeks, give or take, and a lot of goat and stone sheep, stuff like that. So
okay. Any crazy moments from out there that you want to talk about?
Fucking yeah, everyone. No, I mean,
how much time you got?
Yeah, no, I mean the reality of like with what I was saying before, like kind of getting not bored or tired of archery, but the dopamine drip for me. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and that dopamine drip is hard to produce the more you do, right? And so, for me, when I say dopamine drip, that may not be the right term, but like for me to be fulfilled, right, I need a lot of adventure, a lot of pain and suffering on the hike in. I need to be able to use every bit of woodsmanship, where that's navigation, route planning, getting eaten by grizzlies, big part, those little bastards are everywhere. And then, scoring and judging and getting the client out, getting an animal, and then a physical fitness portion of it. And so that's hard to hit for me anymore. And up there, it checks all the boxes. And so you're truly as remote about as you can get. You're dropped off in a tiny little 1957 Super Cub, right? 2-seater. When you're dropped off, I mean, there's someone coming, right? That's it. And so having the ability to do that, when I say the ability, having the skill set to do that, wanting to do it, and having some years left in me, it was hard to pass up doing it. And if my knees weren't starting to catch up with me, I would probably do it much, much longer. But I've been fortunate enough to see up there places man has not been before, and I can say that with confidence. People are like, how do you know? And I'm like, I can't be certain, but I know the outfitters before they got in by horseback. I know Ron and Maria are amazing people. Ron is an amazing pilot. And when he drops me off on some shitty little pond where we about die, and he says, no one's hunted here, and I'm like, all right, that's a pretty good bet. So, and then the fact that we, on the goat hunts, probably push it farther than you need to go for a goat, but just the grass is greener than syndrome, right? Just want to see over the next mountain. I know Lance Banning and I saw shit that no humans have ever seen before other than a plane. Like, we went farther than people had ever gone before by a lot. In fact, we took my doctor, Drew. In fact, his name's Dr. Drew online. I've had him on the podcast. Amazing human, one of my best friends. We dragged his poor ass through some shit that I wouldn't put the devil through. Like, it was bad. Wow. It was awesome. We got to see, to say that you have put your feet where no humans' feet have been before, and say that with almost absolute certainty, it's very few humans get to say that. And so I wouldn't say proud is the right word, but I definitely, it's for me and my mentality and everything else is cool. And when I know that I'm getting to go someplace like that, and they're like, once you cross this ridge line, no one's been back there. Even if we don't have to, I'm probably fucking going, right?
Yeah, we're going.
Yeah. So, and Ron and Marie are amazing people, and their family that I work for, Gaetano and Miguel and the crew up there are great people and offer a great, it's a great hunt, great area. So,
and I bet the animals up there, they're going to be curious about you because they haven't seen people either, right? So
they're easier to kill. Yeah, I've been shot.
So for someone who might be going on their first guided hunt, is there any kind of rules or unwritten rules to keep in mind?
Yeah, there's a lot. And I can say this from being guided and a guidee, right? There's multiple places I have to be guided to go hunt. It's the law, right? And then being a guide, the one I would say is sit down with the guide before you go. Let him know what kind of hunt you want. Are you looking to put miles on the ground? Like, are you in it for the adventure? Do you want to hike a lot? Do you want a big animal or do you want a animal? Do you want, are you open to shooting it with a gun? If you have a bow, come up with a game plan for that. Meaning like, hey, on day 3 or 4, let's grab the gun. But on day 1, if it's a Crockett, we'll just use goats for an example. We can't get close enough. I'm okay to grab the gun, get a rapport, let the guide know, and then let the guide, right? Like the guide's there for a reason. Shut the fuck up and let him do his job.
Right.
If he's a horrible guide, I mean, I get that, and there's always different scenarios, but if never guide the guide, right? Just let him do his thing. And if you are a person that doesn't want to listen to the guide, tell the guide that in the beginning. Like, I like to do my own thing, so he knows ahead of time you're probably going to piss him off and not listen to him. Like, let him know in the beginning, or maybe the first 3 or 4 days, listen to the guide, and on the 4th day say, hey, I know you guys always go over here. Can we go somewhere else? He may tell you to piss off, but generally you want to listen to the guide. The next thing, guides are not a marital counselor. So if you bring your wife, don't fight around the guide, right? Like, he doesn't want to deal with that shit. So like, try to, don't have that happen. You know what I mean? And I say that, people are like, what? And I'm like, oh, I've seen some shit with husbands and wives. So like, they're not marital counselors. Just hash it out, not around them. Don't make it awkward. Next thing, tip your guide, average is 10 to 15% of the total cost of the hunt. So if it's a $10,000 hunt, you need to tip, 1,000 to 1,500. And then also the packer and the cook, it's always good to kick the cook some money. And don't give the guide gear unless he wants gear. If somebody asks and says, hey, would you rather have Swarovskis or money? And if the guide's like Swarovskis, then great. But don't, leave some old fucking camo for a tip. It's just not cool. Like, leave money. The next thing too is the guide can only do so much. The rest of it's up to you. So if you're out of shape and you can't shoot for shit or whatever, like, that's on you. That's not on the guide, right? The guide is there to get you and do his very best, but you have to take responsibility for your own actions. And so, if you are going on a goat hunt and you've never shot at an angle, right? Like steep angles, that's not the guide's fault. He's going to try to get you as close as he can. And if you've never shot off a boulder and you've only shot in the prone or you whatever, like, those are all things that are up to you that you need to pony up and, put yourself in the best position to succeed no matter what situation that you're in. The next thing too is, obviously on the, like I said, fitness, be fit or as fit as you can be. And then, don't, it's a team, right? The guide is not your servant. He's not your slave. He's not your whatever you want to call it, your team out there. And so don't expect, he'll do it, but don't expect, unless you're dying, him to carry your shit. Now, if you're older in the years, whatever, different story. If you got to get firewood, help him get firewood, or she. There's a lot of good female guides out there. If water needs to be grabbed, and the guide's whatever cooking, you cook, the guide go grabs water, whatever. But you're a team out there. He's not your servant or she. I could keep going, but those are some pretty good rules of thumb. So.
Yeah, I think that hits some good spots. That's good. And I guess the some of the outdoor schools that you're getting off the ground now with Born Primitive, that should help people hopefully who might be going in that direction, but also people that are going off on their own. Can you tell us about some of those schools that you're trying to pump out?
Yeah, and they would be actually good for a lot of guides to go through, considering a lot of guides don't know how to navigate. Where's the damn with a map and a compass? So, what it is we want to set you up for success in whatever you're doing, and we're going to offer classes applicable to kind of each skill set. So whether that be, like I said, with a bow, high angle shooting, different scenarios, stalking, how to be quiet, how to set your bow up correctly for best chances of success. And I don't just mean arrow weight, but meaning making the bow quiet, tuning the bow, high angle shooting, shot opportunities. When I say shot opportunities, knowing if you draw back at an elk that comes in at 18 yards, more than most likely he's going to bound out to 40, 45, turn broadside and look back. You're going to be able to sneak an arrow in. Knowing that, assessing that, knowing what pin to put on it if you don't have time to range it. Last thing you want to do is let down and try to range the damn thing. That'll make a guide punch you right in the liver. And again, just tech tips, skill sets, stuff like that. Then land navigation, we'll have land navigation courses, how to read a map and a compass, truly read a map and a compass, terrain association, knowing what contour interval, declination diagram, all that kind of stuff is. How to call in for search and rescue team if you need to, meaning give them grid coordinates, wind direction, landing strips, where they can land a helo, stuff like that. And then stalking, glassing, how to find animals, how to glass correctly, how to plan your approach or your route. And so your route may be 10 miles in, you find an animal, how to plan your approach on that animal for the best success, whether you're solo or with someone else. We'll do some like home security, home defense stuff, especially for I don't want to stereotype, but if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're not proficient with a weapon, to be proficient with that weapon, how to clear your house, how to keep your house safe, what weapons to use, what to do. Basically, if someone comes to your door, open it up, bleach their eyes with a flashlight, kick them, shut the door, lock the fucking thing. What to do after that? I mean, there's a lot to it. That's not my specialty. Situational awareness. And when I say that, like, not to be the dude on Taken, right, or whatever, like a weirdo, but you throw stickers all over your van, right? You got multiple kids. There's athletic stickers on the van for high school. That I know you're not at home. Your ass is at a football game, right? You got multiple kids. Again, and just paying attention to things like that. I mean, there's a lot of creepy, weird fuckers out there, right? So everything, like, there's a lot to it. So those are the things that we'll be covering and much more. And we'll be doing that on YouTube, different videos and things. And then that will set you up. If you purchase one of the boots on the ground courses, you'll be able to have at least a base set of knowledge before you come out to a course. And we're going to offer the first few courses actually free. So,
oh, that's cool. And then they'll be repeating after that, or it's not going to be just a couple and then that's it. It'll be like on a schedule.
Yeah, we'll be, the first year we'll probably do 6, and then who knows after that. Obviously, we're just getting going on this, but it's no, I could say photography and fly fishing. Let's say, like, if I could pay for a 7-day course on fly fishing and get hands-on, one-on-one info, and go on a river and actually fish, or go, actually learn, what is that worth it? Because I'm already watching YouTube videos, right, trying to get a base idea. So that's the kind of the concept of it, of I learn all this different type of stuff online, and I have friends teaching me. And can I sign up to go with who's somebody I've been watching? Kelly Gallup. He's a fisher, world-renowned dude from Montana. Can I pay $1,500 and go fishing with him for a couple of days and learn a ton of shit, right? And so, like, I kind of parallel it to that. Photography is the same way. So we may end up doing 2 where you can set up. It would cost, just because it's like a little bit of a time consuming pain in the butt, where you could sign up and get 30 minutes on a phone call with me or one of the other instructors to just blast questions away, like whatever that may be. And most of all of the instructors or former operators are tier 1 guys that have a very large degree of knowledge when it comes to things that I'm not, I'm not a sniper. I'll wing bullets downrange, but that's not my thing, right? So, we got a lot of really good dudes for instructors. So
that's awesome. That'll be a great bit of information for people. I know you were. I saw you were. You had the marsupial. Is it the Nomad bino harness you're using?
Yeah, I go back and forth, and so Jim actually probably hates my guts for
Okay.
in a good way. We're friends, but he, I've used every bino harness on the market, but when the rubber meets the road, I'm using a compass, right? So when I get on those more difficult hunts, I'm using a map and a compass a lot, and that magnet will ruin your day using a compass. Yeah, it'll look like the Jack compass, right? So
Yeah.
I had wanted him to build a Nomad, and they're hard to build. In fact, he and I may help him out, but we need to redesign the one a little bit that he has. So anyway, and I use a bunch of different bino harnesses, but specifically with that one, I use the magnetic one. When it's Alberta, Eastern Colorado, South Dakota, Texas, whatever. But you're gonna go drop me off in the middle of nowhere. I'm using the Nomad because I'm gonna actually use my compass for navigation.
Yeah. I was looking to try that one out. I have tried other non-magnetized ones in the past, and it looked like a good one. So,
well, the thing is, and I'm disliked by some because of my cynical kind of smart ass mentality, which I understand, but the majority of people that head out west probably have, well, my watch isn't on me, some kind of a Garmin Instinct Solar 2X or a Phoenix 8 or a Phoenix 6 or whatever, and you've got this giant ball of knowledge in your wrist, right? And that they use a small portion, certainly not the navigation portion. And then they have a GPS, which they have absolutely no idea how to use. I mean, a very small percentage of it. And then they have mapping software, whatever else, Spartan Forge or Onyx or whatever. And they haven't put in the time to actually learn all of those things. And so I understand it. I mean, I get it, but I think like what we're trying to do with the schools and what I'm really, whether it's our school or, learn those things. You're carrying that shit around. Honestly, most people could leave their GPS at home because it's just a paperweight. I mean, they just turn it on and mark waypoints and can kind of figure out how to get back. But the reality is you have a piece of gear in your hand that can truly save your life if you know how to use it. And so it's important to learn how to use those things.
Just want to take a quick break to talk to you about a couple of things that I've been using that I think might benefit you. One is this Numa Outdoors gear. This is in their Kaza OV pattern, which is great whitetail pattern when you're up in a tree in the fall and late season. They also have a Kaza pattern which has more green in it, which is good for spring through to the fall. Numa has given me a code to give to you of Caribou Media 20, which will save you 20% at checkout. Another product here that I've been using for years now is the Bulldog targets. This is a Canadian made target. They're made in Manitoba. They have a lifetime warranty. I've used that warranty twice now on a couple of my larger targets that are outside. It's very simple, very easy. These targets are 2-finger removal every single time, which is incredible. Field point only target. Bulldog's been gracious enough to give me a 20% discount code to give to you at checkout. Use code BD20-Caribou-Media. That'll save you 20% on these awesome targets. Now back to the show. Yeah, and it's a skill that's definitely going away because everybody's gravitating towards the electronics. It's no different than the kids in schools not learning cursive writing anymore. Like my kids can't sign their name because they've had a laptop since they could start school. And when I was in
comparison, I hate writing in cursive. I'm just kidding. I'm for that actually. Yeah, no cursive. No cursive.
But it's like it's almost like a dying skill. Like I remember, I think it was in grade 8, they sent a bunch of us up to this outdoor education school, and the instructors took us out in the wood. They gave us like a little, obviously, one day or the morning or something. We went over what a compass was and how to use it with a map, and then they dropped us in the woods, and they're like, "You need to get to this point. We'll see you there." And then they left. And at the time, we're slightly freaking out because we're young kids, but we figured it out. Little did we know that they were obviously way far behind us coming up, but going from one tree to the next and using your map and your compass together, I think that's something everybody who's going to go outside in the woods needs to sort out, so you're not calling for help.
So I mean, that's a good example of one of the courses that we'll do is you'll start out at station one, and your first, your buddy team or group or whatever, there'll be a GPS there, and it'll be turn it on right now and show me on the map where you're at, and then I'll give you an azimuth from that point that you have to follow to go to point 2. And point 2, you'll have a flint and steel, or not a flint and steel, a ferro rod. You have to build a fire. From 2 to 3, you'll have another azimuth, 3, 5, 600 meters. You get to point 3, there'll be P cord and a tarp, right? Pitch a tarp, right? Like, so you have, cool. That'll be the easier course, right? That'll be the simple one, because that one's pretty, but that's schoolyard shit. Like, that's Foursquare, but that's a good way to start getting people going and then advance it after that. Because the reality, I mean, if you have a very serious injury, how many of your friends, if you were in the middle of, I don't know, the Bitterroot Wilderness, can call in a helicopter or search and rescue and you not die? I mean, would you feel good about it? Right? I mean, do you think you'd live? Do you think you get them in there? And if they didn't have a cell phone, specifically cell phone service, could you get someone in off an inReach and explain to them how to get there and where to land and, whatever? Like, can you say, I'm at this 6-digit grid coordinate, and at 284 degrees at 300 meters is a place a helicopter can land? Can you do that? My phone is going crazy this morning. So those are the things we want to teach, right? Is to help keep people alive as well.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I saw a bunch of footage from the expo you were just at. Do you have any experience with these initial ascent packs? Because I'm seeing people carrying around ridiculous amounts of weight on their back and standing upright.
I'm turning my freaking silencer on my phone on here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah. So I picked up 2 of them when I was there. I'm trying to be fair with my review. So I've actually purchased the Stone Glaciers and the Exos and stuff as far as to test out. And I haven't finished my review because I'm trying to make it as thorough as possible. But
okay.
I'll go over some of the stuff. I mean, no. I mean, I would say, like, and I'm trying not to be biased to Kifaru here because I, worked there for so long, was a big part of it. But like,
yep.
There's a reason in a lot of ways Kifaru is more expensive. And I can say this, I mean, these aren't, when you do a review, there's opinions, right? Mm-hmm. These aren't opinions. Okay. This is,
this is fact.
The foam is a higher quality. Yeah. I was going to say, like, you can research it. I encourage people to test it. And I'm not like batting for Kifaru here, right? I'm going to use what I want to use, and I'm in that position now. But the foam in a Kifaru, for example, is a higher quality foam. A Kifaru comes with auto locks. Auto locks are more expensive, but they're also heavier. So if you want auto locks, you got to change them out. There's things like that, right? That have to be put into that equation again. And these aren't opinions. And when I do the review, I'll be very clear on, this is fact. These are opinions, right? That initial ascent will give a Kifaru a run for its money in heavy load hauling. I will say that. And when I say that, like, Kifaru is very well known for extreme heavy load hauling.
Yep.
Yeah, that initial ascent will give it a run for its money. And I just had knee surgery, so that's why I'm like a little hesitant to go too crazy. So I want to be as fair to everyone as I possibly can be. There's different downsides to all of the packs, right? So you said initial ascent, the way their lumbar attaches, when you grab it, it'll pop right off, right? It Velcros on. It's not a static attachment. Things like that. Stone Glacier, the belt system to attach pockets to it literally is horrible. It's fucking horrible. And I like the Stone Glacier packs, right? But you're gonna attach an Nalgene, but it's like a set of cow balls swinging around. It's just not a effective system to have a Nalgene bottle. So, but you get to that initial ascent, the frame isn't as tall, right? So when you get to a bigger, longer torso or whatever, you're going to start to lose the ability for a load lifter. there's a lot to this, and we'll end up on for an hour as I dive into it. But yeah, I've been able to use the packs quite a bit, some different ones. So
nice.
I'd like to be able to do this review where people actually learn something from it. It's not the fucking jaded dude that left one company because they didn't pay him. So now you know what I mean? I want to actually speak intelligently about all of them, because
for sure
you don't find that very often. And when I say that, I've watched some reviews online, and I can tell pretty quickly the guy that didn't get what he wanted from one company and went to the other. You know, those are the ones where only, all right. And then I've watched some where the person really means well, but they don't necessarily know what they're doing adjustability wise, or, you know, things like that on a pack. And so, you know, you watch a review where a guy says this pack shifts or this is this. I can see from the video, it's like, no, dude, you didn't. It's not set up correctly, right? Like there's a lot to it. So, and I'm not speaking about any pack specifically in all of that. It's just, since I have a lot of years behind me designing and everything else with packs, you know, I'm not going to be in a position where I'm probably going to be setting up something incorrectly. And so I feel that I can give everyone a fair shake and truly, you know, say, hey, this is reality. You know, this is fact. These are my opinions on certain things. This is going to be downfalls of a specific pack or whatever. So,
I remember hearing when the Born Primitive Frontier pants were coming out, and hearing that you were attached to them, I just thought, you know, with all your experience and everything, that they might just very well be the best pants ever come out on the market. Can you tell us a bit about some of your favorite pieces from the line, from the Born Primitive line?
Yeah, I would say one of my favorite that probably gets overlooked the most is the rain gear. I don't talk about it as much as I should, just because it's a 4-way stretch rain gear. So it's like wearing hiking pants. It's not, you know, if you've ever hiked up a mountain in a rainstorm with rain pants on, it sucks. They bind and they're grippy. It sucks. Anyway, and the rain jacket is really comfortable. Like you could wear it anywhere. So, but the Frontier pants is definitely, I mean, honestly, in the Op Assault pants, the tactical pant Bruno designed, both pants are amazing. I wear the Op Assault pant a ton. I would say our pants is what we're most best known for. So yeah, the Frontier pant, the Op Assault pant, and then that Quiver fleece, we can't keep those in stock. You know, it's a grid fleece top. You know, like fly fishing yesterday, I had a grid fleece, or excuse me, a Ridgeline Heavy, which is a merino poly blend. So it's got the good parts of the merino in it, is my base. And then I had a Quiver half zip over the top of that. And then a barrier jacket, which is our soft shell over that. And it was pretty cold in the morning, and ran with that. And the thing that's nice with our system, it's not so convoluted and confusing that you don't know what to get. It's kind of everything you need is there. And so in reality, you could just about buy everything and use every piece, where there's other, and I'm not saying it's a negative thing. There's certain specific clothing items that are very niche with other companies. I didn't really want to do that when we were doing BP. I wanted people, hey, what do I need from BP for a layering system? It's like, well, you just buy all of it, because every piece is very important. So from the Ridgeline Light, Ridgeline Heavy, which is our base layers, the Quiver fleeces, the crew, and the half zip and the full zip, all those things are, you know, very important. But yeah, I mean, I'm rambling on, dude. I mean, all of them, my heart and soul's into every one of them. So
yeah,
pretty important. But if, you know, the Ridgeline pant is a big one, but I would say the most overlooked is certainly that rain gear.
And with the you had a hand in the Jackstone knife with MKC. Did that design come from you, or was that?
Yeah,
that was what it was when you've used previously in the past, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my dad had a Puma, which is, I don't even know if they're in business anymore, but it was a Puma Skinner. It had a cougar on it. A Puma is like a mountain lion from, you know, mountain man days. They call it a Puma.
Yeah.
He had a Puma Skinner, which I didn't know what the hell it was at the time, but I, you know, little kid doing hood rat shit, I'm using that knife. And, you know, that knife design is a Canadian belt knife from years, many, you know, hundreds of, I mean, however long, you know, in the 1800s, I'm sure. So I took the design of a Canadian belt knife and drew up a couple things. Josh manufactured a couple demos for me that were, just plastic, like 3D modeled or whatever. Sent them. We got to where we wanted, and then off it went.
Nice. I just recently switched to the dialed proof sight.
Yeah.
It's the first one I've ever seen that had the bubble at the top, which immediately attracted my attention, and then the fact that you could see right through it was another thing. And I used it at a tournament last week, and it's been incredible so far. I'm still working on getting it set up because the weather out here is ridiculous and there's snow and wind everywhere. So sighting a bow in that kind of an environment is not necessarily the best thing. I know you were using it as well. What are some of your favorite parts about that?
Well, my first favorite part is, I say favorite. That's probably the most improved upon product I've seen in a while from version 1 and the Arxos to 2. I'd say the primary, man, it's hard to list just one. So for example, I like the fact you can move the dial if needed. So if you lose a yard or two, you just loosen it, move your tape, right? Just for free. I don't really worry about the locking lever to lock your dial in, because I leave it unlocked a lot because there's enough gription in there. I don't think gription's a word. There's enough grip in there.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, to leave it in place or whatever. Maybe not for tournaments, but so I like that. I like the side pins. I'm not a vertical pin guy. I just inherently torque my bow a hair, so which is one of the reasons I got to shim my cams to the left on most bows. But I can see the back of the pins because I torque my bow a bit. So I don't like vertical pins. I'm also going fucking blind as I get older, so I don't see vertical pins as well. So and then adjusting the axis, once I figured out, you got to have a bendy, short bendy Allen to do it. But super simple, seems extremely durable as far as that goes. I like the size of the housing as far as for accuracy and the peep size. So for me, there's kind of a happy medium with everything. Larger housing, you need a larger peep for them to marry up so your peep circles the housing perfectly. And people get not confused. Old school guys, like back in the day, they didn't have a housing way back. And so they centered the pin in the peep. And Griv, whatever his name is, he's kind of a heavier set dude. I think he does tech tips for Lancaster. Anyway, he talked about the other day, and then I had a bunch of questions about, do you center your pin in the peep, which they did back in the day, and I don't, right? And when I use a rover, my bottom pin is my God pin. That's my rover pin, and there's no way that you can tell me, if you haven't done that for years, that you're going to magically put your lowest pin, you're going to have, in the middle of the housing, right? It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Not for most. And so you get a lot of peep fade and things like that. So I want to make sure my peep and my housing are centered perfectly. And when you have a little bit smaller housing, you can use a smaller peep, depending upon how much you move your sight in and out, and then the distance from your eyeball to your peep there's a lot to do with this shit, with string angle and everything else. Anyway, that housing allows me to use a 5/32 peep, which I like better. 3/16 is good for hunting, but a little bit big, for when you're dropping, bombs, like farther shots. And with the technology with putting a light on where that's legal, where you run into problems is low light, obviously, seeing through the peep. Back in the day when I hunted in Wisconsin, they had like a sex toy for a peep, like a fucking thing. It's giant. And they were poaching a lot too, honestly. I mean, probably anyway, I think they're probably dropping some bombs, later in the light that you probably should be. That tritium on this giant pencil pen where they would paint tritium on the end so you could see at night. Like a string splitter. I mean, a string splitter, you literally, like Peter Pan, could dive through. I mean, it's huge peeps, right? So now with technology, right, I like a smaller peep. And then if I can use a light for my pins, right, that'll light things up a little bit. And I've gotten used to that. So again, it's happy medium. That 5/32 peep is nice for that size of housing. I like that level at the top. It does take a second to get used to, but generally, like peep fade, you're fading down, right? You're fading low in the peep, especially shooting uphill and downhill, you're going to fade out of the bottom of the peep generally. Longer distance, as your arm's going up, you're fading out of the peep. And as you get more comfortable, you peep fade out of the bottom. So when guys get, like, I think my sight tape's off, your tape's not off. It's not the it's not the bow, it's the Indian, so to speak. Can I say that now? Is that PC with this woke culture we have? So it's usually it's the Indian, not the bow. And so when people are fade and they're like, man, my sight's perfect until I get way out there. Sometimes it can be the tape, but generally you're fading. The one thing you get false hope when you get peep fade, that you are fading to see generally the level more. Right. So as you're fading down, you're still going to see that level because you're fading lower in the peep. When the level's up top, it's more of a reminder of I'm fading in the peep, right? I call it fading, whatever you want to call it. And so that is something people don't really think about when that level's up top. If you're aiming at 88 yards and you can't see your level, you are fading out of the bottom of your peep, 100%. So
something's in the way.
Yeah, depending upon how your system works, and I probably didn't explain that the best, but it's easier for me to tell that personally with the level at the top. So anyway, I mean, it's easier for me to see better that I'm fading out at the bottom. So yeah, I mean, but the sights, it's just an amazing sight all the way around. I don't like micro adjust pins either. Rubber meets the road. They get crap in them. They're a little bit rougher. So I'm old school. I don't mind having an Allen. They got a little thumbnail, little flappy thing that you can grab a hold of to move your pin up and down, which is nice. So, and they got little marks for it and everything too, which is cool. But I sight my shit in way different. I don't ever read the instructions, right? I'm like old school. I just sight my 20 through 60 in. And then, all right. So I mean, I get to where, on the dial, right? I figure out where I want my housing to be to get the most I can out of it. Roughly, I sight in 20 through 60, and then I sight in 60 through 120 and make marks. And then I just hold the sight tape to it, right? I don't, enter a bunch of shit in and print out a sight tape. Like I actually sight my bow in. People don't do that as much anymore. I'm finding, not that there's one way right or wrong, but I've just always done it. I would just sight my bow and then match a sight tape up to it. So,
yeah, I find it's depending on what your process is. Like I would always, draw back, and then when I'm aiming, I would go down. It'd come from top to bottom, so I'd come down, check out the bubble, and then come back up to the pins. Whereas now it almost feels faster because you're already, acquiring your bubble as you're coming down to your pins. So, yeah, it's awesome. It's gonna be a good one, that's for sure. And the customization, like for the people who love to color match and all that craziness, it can. I don't think there's a.
You got to feel good, right? You got to. You don't want to leave the house in like baggy sweatpants, looking like MC Hammer, or you got to look good, right? You got to feel tough, so that's important.
Right, confidence is number one before you start shooting, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't dress myself, right? If somebody else is confident about what I'm wearing, I should be good.
And I see you and Luke are getting the best of the best off again.
Yeah. He was like, man, we got to do one more, which I was cool with. We're not going to do teams this year because that's like an epic pain in the butt trying to do the teams. So it's just like a big tournament, right? With hunting bows, whether that be a stick bow or a compound or whatever else. I think that's June 7th, 8th, and 9th or something like that. 7th and 8th, I got to look, but right in that time frame. I won it last year or 2 years ago, the last time we had it. And I had been up here, but winning your own shoots generally frowned upon. So, right, so I went down and I made sure I didn't shoot any practice warm-ups. I didn't go shoot the course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
rigged.
Oh, I know, right? And so, it's a rangefinder. It's not like you're judging yardage, right? So it's, you can use rangefinders. And so, I shot basically to the capability I should be. I shot good, right? I mean, I shot against some really good. Jacob Pettit is an amazing shooter. I think he took second behind me, and Gaius Carter was there. Dale Jones, a buddy of mine from Pennsylvania, came down, and I had really good course management that day, or those days. Where when I say course management, it's not in golf, right? When when you're shooting. Course management means you're assessing each target and being safe when you do that. Meaning, when you're on a mountain course, right? Like there's a lot more variables inside of that mountain course. One as simple as just resting your heart rate, right? Like, you don't have to smoke it up the hill. And it's also not a horrible idea to smoke it up the hill when you're the last guy shooting, if you think the people are dumb enough to follow you up the hill, right? And so I get a lot of things like that, you know what I mean? So which actually saying that, people are probably, what a dick, but I mean, when I would get to a target, let's say my toes were downhill, steep angle downhill, you're shooting on a side hill. It was very important to me when your toes are downhill, you're going to shoot downhill side. It's just gravity and your body and everything else. So you really want to focus on camming into the hill, drawing back and then leveling up, not drawing back and then leveling. Just things like that. And I did really good, for that weekend with course management. So
yeah, I've done a couple 3D tournaments up here in Canada, and I'm actually hoping to put one on with a couple of guys from the Full Draw podcast. We're doing 3 separate events, and all the money raised is going back to the club to help support the archery programs. But it's funny when you get onto some of those targets, and if there's some shade or if they've got spots on them and it's hard to judge, and you're like, okay, who's up first? Give us something to aim at, right?
Yeah, for sure. Look at the size of that freaking fish.
Oh, that was yesterday?
Yeah, man, we were hammering him yesterday. Stephen Dawn, he's going to make a film of the day.
Nice.
My dentist, he's one of my best friends. He landed one of the largest brown trout I've ever seen. Like, I lost 2, like, not to switch to fishing, but like, I'm not used to 3X tippet for everything. Like, these fish are big, right? I've been running 4 and 5X. And so I had 5X on, in my entire life of fly fishing, which I fly fished for a long time. You don't see backing very often, right? You're generally nothing's run into backing. Dude, I saw backing 4 times in the last week. Like yesterday, I hooked that rainbow and it caught current, which is my fault. And they were laughing. I was like, I'm going to see backing again. So anyway, I snapped off everything twice in this one spot. And Dan came in and hooked one of those big ones. And dude, I mean, literally, he fought that thing for, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then when he finally got it in, and when I netted it, I was like, holy cow, dude, that thing's giant. I had caught a 24 plus inch brown my second time out, which I'm finding is like,
holy cow.
Yeah, people are like, that's a fish of a lifetime. I had help, right? It wasn't me. I mean, my dentist was telling me what to do. So, but like that fish he caught wasn't quite as long, but size wise, he's like, man, that's the biggest brown I've ever caught here. So, but anyway, back on the best of the best, it'll be, I talked to kind of an event coordinator, super good dude that was at the Western about potentially doing a little bit bigger of a shoot, whether that be in Wyoming, held by Born Primitive and Luke or whatever, but like a very large shoot, where we can I don't want to do multiple. I don't want to do, like, Sean DeGray and I are super good friends with TAC, but truly like a best of the best shoot where people come from everywhere, to shoot it. And not just hunting bows, but like a Western mountain shoot where you're not shooting flat ground with perfectly broadside targets. Like, truly, I don't want to put shit in the way of the target, right? But there's a system. You know what? I can't even talk about this because he told me to shut up. Anyway, he has a new system that's going to be really cool, and I'm excited to potentially have a tournament with this new system. So
sweet.
Glad I remembered that.
I wanted to ask you. I can edit that out if you want.
No, you're good. I didn't.
Okay. Your new boat.
What?
Your new fishing boat. How did that all come together?
So I've been thinking about getting a boat in general, but I'm not like a lake fisherman to speak of. I mean, don't get me wrong, my girlfriend and I want to go float on the boat. Yeah, it's great, but I'm just not a big lake fisher person, dude. So we went and floated, and my dentist had been bugging me to float these rivers for a while, and I just didn't have time. And so, recently, made some large life-changing events to help my mental stability and like calm down stress, right? And so when I was like, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want to do. Fishing was one of them. You know, I really wanted to fly fish. So I was like, Dan, let's hit the river. So we hit the river in a clacker craft, which is a great drift boat, and we floated it. And you know, I'm like, man, I should get a drift boat. He's like, dude, don't get a drift boat. You can just use mine. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, you should take a look at rafts. And so I had been in a flycraft once before. I think it was a flycraft, and I saw one, you know, on the river, and it looked like one of those things that was like, okay, very maneuverable. They can go through just about anything because they don't sink in the water too much. So I started Googling. I'm a Googler, like reading reviews, forum. That's the best way to do it. Because when I say that, one bad comment for something speaks far more than a million good comments, right? So you got to be able to read through the bullshit. So as I'm reading through this one, I found quickly that there's a group in Montana that hate flycraft, right? They're like constantly bashing about it. So reading through all of that, the flycraft was the one that looked like was going to be the best. And so I called the company, and I think Brandon was the guy's name. Super helpful, right? Really good dude. I ran through everything with him. I was going to get the 2-man. We're talking. He said, get the 3-man. You're going to like the guide better. I'm like, okay. And they're expensive, right? So it was actually a gift. A buddy of mine, as we say this, my buddy, I don't know if you saw my social media page because I deleted it pretty quickly. He put a note on my window that said, stay off our river. I know who you are. I'll find you. So I thought it was like a local guide or so, like, yeah, it was my buddy fucking with me. He just texted me laughing again. So anyway, it was a gift, right? I was like looking and it kind of a gift tip type of a thing. Anyway, so I was like, okay, well, I should figure out which one of these is the best if it's going to be a gift, right? And so anyway, I researched everything, and that one looked to be the best. So I ordered it. I had just had knee surgery, and we'd been floating in the clacker craft in the river with like 6 days after my knee surgery. I think my surgeon would have killed me. Like like shit I shouldn't have been doing. So that flycraft came in. I got it put together in my garage. I did it by myself, which probably wasn't that smart to do. You know, sitting in a chair a lot with 7/16 wrench, impact wrench. You know, putting on because I couldn't really bend over with my knee. So I got it all put together, and then the bad weather hit, like really cold. And then I had to go to Western Hunt Expo. So I'm like a kid at Christmas wanting to try this raft out. So
I just want to go home.
Yesterday was the first time we got to, or day before yesterday was the first time we got to use it. And just like zero buyer's remorse whatsoever. I was like, this thing. So the first time I went with Chris Horn, he's a local here. He's a super good dude. He's a big motherfucker, right? He's like 230, 235. And I mean, yoked, but I mean, big dude. And so 2 fat kids in the raft, right? And I'm like, well, we'll see how this goes. And I'm clearing things that I've been dragging with the clacker craft. So we took every offshoot we could to see what this could go through. Man, super maneuverable. I put a grizzly cooler on the back where I'd strapped it down where you can open it. And so we load it backwards so the weight's in front of the axle, right? Because there's weight inside there. Anyway, the way that I had kind of imagined setting it up pretty much was, I thank God knocked it out of the park, like how I have everything kind of positioned where I have the backup pump, the repair kit, where the rods go and everything else. And so we floated it the first time and both were like, good Lord, dude, this thing, like it don't get me wrong. If you're floating some massive river, like, I mean, you could do it, but yeah, a drift boat's probably going to be better. If you're floating, I don't know, the Madison or something crazy, you know, a different drift boat might be better. But like, you can take this in big water, or you can take it down some pretty crazy rapids. It's very stable and easy to fish out of, and you can throw it in the back of your truck. I have this goofy extender that comes out of my hitch, and it wraps back with rollers, and so you drop your tailgate, and that extends it, and then load it all the way in, so I can put it in the back of my truck. But yeah, that first day, Horn and I was doing pretty good. And about halfway through the run, he just started beating the brakes off of me, just hammering fish. I was like, I mean, it's crazy because as I'm learning all this stuff, the depth of the flies and what color and what, I mean, anyway, but we got done, got the boat out, and just, I knew we were going to go the next day. So we went yesterday. My dentist and his buddy took his clackercraft, and then I took the flycraft with Steven, and we kind of filmed it. We had some drones and film, or drones. Steven brought his drone, filmed some with a drone, and yeah, dude, I can't. Yeah, I don't want to sound like a sales pitch for Flycraft, like they sponsor me or anything, but yeah, dude, I can't recommend that thing enough, and that's off 2 trips, so keep that in mind. But yeah, dude, I'm pumped. Like, I'm very excited about that raft.
That's awesome. It's like having a new toy, right? You just want to go home and play with it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I guess like you were saying, you've done a lot of talking about men's health, which is good, and I've appreciated that. I'm going to be 44 next month, and just, we don't have to go too far into this, but just a word to guys in general that are getting older, that they should be paying attention, getting their blood work done. If you're feeling in the dumps, you're not feeling like you're yourself, don't just say, oh, it's because I'm getting older. There could be a reason, and you could be able to correct that, because testosterone goes down as you get older and older, and that's something that has started to creep in with me. So
yeah, I mean, I would say that it's multiple levels. First, your diet is a big one, right? And so there's certainly things you consume in your body with will lower your test level, and it's not always your testosterone, but that's generally the culprit. So one, like, fix your diet, right? And when I say fix your diet, it only gets worse as you get older. And I'm about as shredded as I've ever been. I just turned 48 or not. How old am I? 48, I think. I just turned 48. About as shredded as I've ever been, which is good, with a bad knee. So that's diet, right? I can't do a ton of cardio. So fix your diet. And when I say fix your diet, get rid of processed carbs, get those out the window, consume 100, 120 ounces of water a day. Kind of dial in. If you can afford it, go to a doctor. There's different tests you can do where they'll do kind of a cancellation diet. You got to pee on a stick, figure out, like, whatever. They'll figure out your macros and everything else. Go get the blood test, right? That blood test, get a full panel, right? So they're going to do multiple things, and from thyroid, liver, kidney, how those are doing. But testosterone, they're going to check that, growth hormone free test, get all those things tested. And if you're going to do TRT, since that's going to probably put you in a better state mentally and physically, you might as well clean up the diet at the same time. And then surround yourself with people that are, I mean, if you're the strongest man in the room or the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room.
In the wrong room. Yeah.
You've seen the crew I hang out with. Like, I'm little. In fact, it's funny the amount of shit that was talked. I posted a photo that I put at 6'1", 220. And it's crazy the amount of people that were like, he's not 6'1". I've been beside him. And like, Steven was like, about beat shit up. Steven was like, dude, I'm with him every day. He's 6'1". I guess I'm stumped. I don't know. Anyway, why people are consumed with why I would lie about my height is comical to me. But like, at 6'1", 220, I'm like the little guy, right? And so, and Bruno, who's in charge of Born Primitive Tactical and Outdoor technically, although he says he's not my boss, he does not fucking like fat people. And he has zero issue telling you that if you get fat, you're off the team, right? And I like that. Right? I mean,
yeah,
he's serious. Like, you don't roll with Bruno unless you are the best human you can be and working at it or working at it. And so I don't want to get kicked off the team, right? So I need to stay fit. Right. So yeah, I mean,
motivation.
When you surround yourself like people like Bear and Bruno and Kurt, like, the people that I work with, they make you want to be better, right?
And that's
the thing. And when I say be better, not just scared to be better, right? Like, they make you want to try harder. They make you a better human, and that's a very important thing to do. And they're also, when you are getting into the, there's nothing worse, and I'm not going to bring up names, when somebody calls me multiple times in a year about, I got to do something different, and I tell them what to do, and they keep saying I got to do something different. at a certain point in time, it's laziness, right? I mean, you can do it. And
Yeah.
so you really just you got to make a life choice, and you need to, the earlier you make that, the better it'll be. Because changing your life at 44 or 45 or 48 to where you've been eating ho-hos and ding-dongs and drinking soda or whatever else, trying to break that cycle at that age while your testosterone may be dropping, while your metabolic or your metabolic rate is dropping, or your metabolism is dropping.
Mm-hmm.
You do one good thing is you have a lot of room to grow, right? So it's like you can only go uphill from here. So
that's right.
That's a good thing. But I mean, really, like it's as simple. If it didn't grow out of the ground or it didn't walk on the ground, you probably shouldn't eat it. Now, that's not to say you can't cheat that some. It's not like, I mean, protein bars and shit that definitely didn't walk on the ground, but within reason. It didn't grow out of the ground and it didn't walk on it, you probably shouldn't be eating it, and it should be probably considered bad. And when I say that, no one's perfect, right? You're gonna eat some bad shit, but in the course of a day, if you listen to anything I had to say right now, if you woke up in the morning, don't eat until you're hungry. When you do eat, right, higher protein, unless you're a hard gainer and you're a skinny like person or whatever, you're trying. If you're fat, you're trying to lose weight. Don't eat until you're hungry. Don't just eat because you woke up and you need to eat. And people may argue with that. Eat when you're hungry. And then when you go to eat, higher concentration in protein, very smaller amount of concentration in carbs. That's a general rule of thumb. You're going to hear people argue with that, but I was a fucking fat kid, so I generally don't really want to argue about this. Carbs are bad. So eat 4 to 6 eggs, right? Have a small amount of oatmeal if you have granola. Then later on in the day, have a chicken breast, throw some cheese on it. And then for dinner, higher protein, higher fat, lower carbs. Don't eat chips throughout the day. No Snickers. And people make that very, very difficult. But I promise you, if you cut all processed carbs out of your diet, all soda out of your diet, you're going to fucking lose weight. So when you call me and say, I'm eating as healthy as I've ever been, I've lost no weight, you are lying. You are not doing that. And so it's just
some cheating going on there. Yeah.
And believe me, I can fat shame because I was really fat at one point in time. And so I think I have a free pass to fat shame because that's why I'm skinny, or skinny. That's why I'm more fit. But yeah, truly, you just have to put the work in, and it's difficult. I don't know. Have you ever seen a photo when I was?
You were like 270 when you were like, that was when you were on
steroids. I was on roids at that time. Yeah, no, I'll grab a photo. I got one on the fridge to remind me not to let myself get like that. Yeah, no, when I was really big with what you're talking about, that's when I had moved. I don't know if you'll be able to.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you can see got a big old butt crack coming out front of my stomach.
Motivation. Stick to the outside aisles of the grocery store.
I had basically was in a position where I had moved to Texas and wasn't hunting in the mountains, and out of boredom again, like I said, I got to be doing something anyway. I was like, I'm just going to get as big as I possibly can be. I wanted to bench over 500 pounds. I ended up dating a chick that was like a figure fitness model or whatever. And some of the people I was working out with were juiced to hell. And I'm like, naturally, when I'm lifting heavy 230, you know what I mean? Like bulking, like, and they're like, dude, your body will respond really well to this. So they kind of laid me out on what to take, and I got big as shit. I wish I wouldn't have done it. It's not a smart thing to do. That was in like 08, 9, 10 time frame. And I, haven't touched that stuff, but I did get really big. I think I got to 280 was my biggest. So yeah. I also was eating like 10,000 calories a day.
Holy!
So I knew where everyone's plunger was. I pooped all the time. Like I would wake up and have a dozen eggs for breakfast. A giant thing of oatmeal with peanut butter in it. Like I just ate constantly. So, and I make jokes about all of this. I probably seem, like I said, cynical, but I do make a lot of jokes about this. The human mind is powerful.
Yeah.
It's just up to you to push it. I mean, you can make your body do anything if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, just people that can say that you can raise it on your own, but I'm sure that you can do that to some degree, like testosterone wise. Like if you're You know,
Yeah,
some people,
dude, I mean,
but I don't think you can get it to the number that you probably should be at if you are super low. That's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but
no, I'm free and I'm friends with a lot of them. So if you're 44 years old, your testosterone, they're going to give you a range if you go to a family practice doctor of like 3 to 1100 or something. And if you're at 325, they're not going to, they're like, yep, you're good. You're in the
yeah,
range. And
you're in the range.
is at the bottom of the barrel. And so what they're basically doing is just putting you at your optimal level when you're on, you know, when you do get on TRT. And yeah, you naturally can raise it. You can clean up your diet. You can change your lifting. There's things you can do, but you're not going to raise it that much. And so there's a lot of, you know, you always have haters. I mean, there's one guy specifically that constantly calls me like a roided out like poacher or whatever. But reality is, and I like talking about this because it's helped me so much. The TRT thing, you're not on steroids. Now, if you want to call it that or whatever else, but it is putting something in your body to get you back to where you should be, to be healthy. And so to me, like people have asked, like, man, what if it takes 5 years off of your life? And I'm like, look, if I don't live to 80 and I live to 75, but 45 to 65 is better, I'll lose the 5. I'm all fucked up anyway at that age, right? I want these years while I'm, you know what I mean? As the way I looked at it,
Totally.
I want to be as high as I can be. I mean, and let's face it, some of the people that'll talk shit about TRT are the same people that are on 7 pills to survive because of cholesterol levels, whatever else. And it's like, okay, you can take all of those drugs, but God forbid you take some testosterone to, you know, be in a better position physically. So I don't get too wrapped up in that. You know what I mean? I'm a big advocate of it. It definitely changed my life a lot. So I'm a big advocate of going to get tested. So
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much. I've taken up a lot of your time today already. I know you get a lot of messages, typed messages from people thanking you for everything that you've done, but I think it's good to hear it. We're sort of face to face right now. I'm not in the same room as you, but I do feel that for me, you've been an inspiration for me and helped me a lot with my hunting and outdoor stuff. And I think that I could speak for everybody else in this community that they have gained a lot more from you by sharing your experiences. And I appreciate that. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. My freaking watch is going off. No, I'm really happy I can help people and be more candid about, you know, how fucked up I am and maybe help people, you know, along the way. So no, it's good for me because there are times in my life that I've needed help and didn't have it. And there's times in my life that I needed help and got it. And so if I can help people or give them some motivation or crack jokes about being a fat kid or whatever else to give them help, I'm more than happy to do it. So I appreciate that. I do get a lot of very positive comments and I do appreciate those. So yeah, none of us are perfect, certainly not me. And so I definitely try to let people know where I've made mistakes in hopes to pull people out of a rut that they might have been doing the same thing. So
that's good because a lot of people will try and hide it just to look, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. People have asked, like, do you suck at anything? And I'm like, fucking life. Yeah. I mean, I could shoot a bow and must be able to fit, you know, but yeah, I mean, the day-to-day life is what usually can get you. So yeah, anyway, I can help people. I'm more than happy to. And yeah, awesome. I appreciate you having me on. I think I blew you off like 3 times fishing. So
that's
yeah,
okay. Okay. You're enjoying the outdoors. That's okay. Yeah. I'd love to have you on again at some point. John Lusk wants to come on with you as well. We can talk broadheads and I don't know, some other stuff, but yeah, thank you very much.
John, when John didn't know shit, like I knew John way back in the day, like 2009 in Colorado. I think I sold him something.
He said he bought Sitka stuff from you.
And he'll tell you like the stories about me living in like a apartment complex, like a single bedroom apartment, sleep on an air pad. Like he was there, like he saw it. I mean, it was literally the size of my bedroom now, like my entire apartment. You know, for years I lived that way. And so people, when I hear his family has money, I was raised in a fucking mobile home, right? Like no. And so I knew John like way back when I was living in a little apartment, and he's always been such a good human. He's just a good dude. So.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. Well, thanks. I'll let you get on with your day and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.